Hey YouTube, hope you guys are doing well tonight. Raj from the UK here, and tonight I'm going to be doing a review on a fragrance from the house of Creed. It's an eau de parfum and it is Bois du Portugal. The fragrance was released in 1987 and definitely is in the style of these these 80s powerhouse fragrances. Comes in two sizes, a 75 ml which will cost you £143, and a 250 ml splash bottle which will cost you a full retail anyway, £259. Top notes, you're going to get Bergamot and Lavender. In the middle you're going to come across Cedarwood, and in the base you will come across Sandalwood, Vetiver and Ambergris. I think there is actually a little bit more going on in this fragrance than the note breakdown suggests. It's not a complex fragrance, but we'll talk about that. I'll talk about that in the review. So let's take a closer look at the packaging. Okay, so let's take a closer look at packaging. I think Creed is, most people know what packaging of Creed looks like, but there's a couple of things I wanted to show and mention. First of all, the box. I think for a fragrance, a luxury fragrance, this is a flimsy box. I don't think it's not very solid. It's very lightweight, and it's just not really what you'd expect from a luxury fragrance, and something of this price as well. The design of the bottle is quite good. You've got the green and gold, always a good colour combination. Creed Bois de Portugal, all your standard details. On the top of the flap here you've got some text in French, again on the other side, and some text here in French. I mean, you think they maybe would have translated that for foreign markets, but it's not a big deal. The fragrance actually doesn't really sit very well inside the box. It shakes around, and I don't think that's going to be a problem. Like the product won't become damaged, but again, you would think it would sit neatly inside the box. And all around the box you've got this Creed logo all over, just in case you forget which brand this is. Okay, so the bottle is really nice. Definitely like this bottle. I like the curvature here, kind of looks like shoulders. And again, continuing with the green and gold here. Over here you've got a nice texture, nice fabric actually. It's kind of like a cheap or very thin suede. On the top you've got the kind of looks like the Prince of Wales logo there, and also on the cap here it says Creed. So some nice details around the bottle. Another criticism of this packaging and of this bottle, and I have a couple of fragrances from Creed, and the cap, this is just not good enough. You know, it's so loose, it doesn't really stay on very well. If you're picking this out of the box, it just doesn't stay on sturdy. And again, you know, you're paying a lot of money for this fragrance. I mean, I got it off eBay for a cheaper deal, but still was a significant amount of money, and you just expect a little better, to be honest. Right, so that was a closer look at the packaging. Let's get into this fragrance and what it smells like. I mentioned earlier that this was a kind of 80s powerhouse style fragrance, and in the initial spray you get, it's definitely in that style. You get a big burst of a kind of citrus scent coming from the bergamot. It's very lemon-like actually as well. That is not really the main player. It sits underneath two notes which come across to me as quite harsh. I still enjoy the opening, but this is quite strong. It is notes of lavender, and also something which isn't mentioned in the note breakdown, but it's something green, something a little bit maybe spicy and quite aromatic, some sort of herb in there as well. A lot of fragrances at this time in the 80s were you know, very, very aromatic, quite intensely green fragrances, and this is like that, but just a little bit more refined. So if you think of your Chanel Pour Monsieurs and your Azzaros Pour Hommes, two fragrances I mentioned because I have them, or I've had them in the past, and they're definitely in that style. And that harshness, that top note does die down after a while. Takes about an hour on my skin. And you really have to get past that to really truly appreciate this fragrance. As the fragrance develops, it becomes less complex and quite simple. You're getting a cedarwood in there, which is really good quality to me. It smells quite sawdusty, like going into a DIY store, but it's mixed in nicely with a touch of vetiver in there as well, which doesn't make it a kind of brash, in-your-face masculine scent. It makes it quite sophisticated. And this fragrance is quite popular with older gentlemen, something that I've read on the online. And while I don't judge fragrance on the basis of, you know, on age, it doesn't really come into my considerations too often. You could definitely see this being for an older crowd or a younger guy, certainly if you feel you can pull off that sophisticated, refined scent. So yeah, you get the cedarwood, a bit of sawdust in there, and the fragrance then develops after a couple more hours, becomes quite softer, and this loudness which you get in the opening couple of hours is gone by this point. You're then left with a beautiful sandalwood. It's nothing too in your face and too strong really. I would like it personally to be a little bit more intense. It's in the vein of Original Santal, another fragrance from Creed, where they use Indian sandalwood, which is from Mysore. Mysore is very, very famous, or notorious actually, for Indian sandalwood, because a lot of people don't actually buy sandalwood from Mysore because they can't get, first of all because of the cost, and they can't get assurances from the Indian government that the trees are looked after and they will be you know, planted again. So people go to other places for sandalwood, but Indian sandalwood is one of the better ones. And it's definitely got that spicy note in it, a touch of cinnamon perhaps, or maybe that's coming from the sandalwood, but it does smell like that. And this is really this is a great scent, I have to be honest. If I was judging this fragrance on scent alone, it would definitely get higher marks. But when I consider things like the packaging, you know, I talked about the box, the cap, the price is actually the major factor here, which is going to bring the overall rating of this fragrance down a little bit. It does go on for a long amount of time. I'm getting, you know, six hours minimum, but nothing too much more than that. So an overall rating, I would probably give this, I would say a 7.5. I was going to go for something like an 8, but when you think of the price, I don't feel like I'm getting value for money here, or like well, with niche fragrances you won't necessarily always get that feeling, but I don't feel that I'm getting something spectacular, and I really would demand that from this price tag. Something which is mentioned in this book, Luca Turin and Tanya Sanchez, and they mentioned that this is quite familiar to Parfum de Nicolas' New York fragrance, which is for me is an outstanding. They gave it 5 stars, and they say that Parfum de Nicolas' New York is a cheaper and vastly better version, and I think there are definitely cheaper alternatives to this fragrance, not necessarily better, but definitely a great fragrance. I'm happy to give it a 7.5. A few other things letting it down there, and just one word on one sentence on Creed itself. I'm not a huge expert in Creed. I have a Ventus and this one, and a decant of Original Santal, and I've tried out a few others from the lines in sample forms. And you know, for the price they're charging, I'm always left with they always leave me feeling underwhelmed. I've never smelt up to this point a fragrance by Creed which completely blows you away. You know, if you look at the fragrances like the Tom Ford Private Blend, or you know, some Andy Tower fragrances, just to name a couple, they really knock you off your chair. You know, they are fragrances where you think, I'm happy to pay big money. Here, I'm always looking on eBay for deals. I go into the store and I think, I don't really want to drop £143 on this fragrance, because while it is good quality, and you can't deny that, are you really getting, is it really justified to pay that much for a fragrance, or are you paying for the history of the fragrance? Creed is an illustrious house, and you kind of feel that that is allowing them to charge a little bit more than what they should be charging. So still, I definitely respect Creed as a house. Their fragrances are really good. Commercial niche brand, I would describe it as. This fragrance is definitely worth checking out. So thanks for watching. That's my take on Bois du Portugal from Creed. See you next time, guys.